Hello everyone, welcome to this month's What's New in AWS, brought to you by AWS Enterprise Support. I've got my crew here with me. Hello Matt, hello Yang, and hello Rovan.
Hi team.
Howdy.
Yeah,
Good to
everyone.
see you all. Good to see you all. We don't have Carlos with us this month. He is out of action, but we have the amazing Yang and his adoring legion of fans that have come to watch him tell us about security. And Matt and I are going to do a session on compute with I think 4 or 5 good releases for the last month that we can talk about. So before we kick off, I just want to let everybody know that I have officially entered the metaverse. Purchased my own Oculus Quest 2, which if you haven't actually used one of these things, it's time. It's an incredible piece of machinery. So actually, Matt or Yang or Rovan, do you have a Quest 2? I should have asked.
I do not, but are you going to do the rest of the live stream with it on or off?
I'm going to turn into my avatar. No, I'm not going to use it because I wear glasses. And you have to wear this spacer in there, but it's a little uncomfortable at the moment. So I'm still just trying to get used to it. But apparently, people are spending a good number of hours in virtual spaces collaborating with their peers across the world. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. I'm a bit sick of 2D. I'm ready to go 3D.
I took my daughter and her friends for escape room VR for her birthday, and it was really fun watching them very involved in the game and taking photos of them while they kind of fighting the unseenable monsters.
Yeah, it's pretty funny to watch people just sort of scrambling around, completely unaware of where they are, and yeah, not. You have to be pretty safe. You have to be pretty secure in your in where you're doing it. Set up sort of guardian boundaries, they call it, which is actually a good segue into security, because we know Yang and Rovan love talking about security, and looks like there's two releases for the last month. So Matt, we'll drop off and let them talk it out.
Cool. Leanne, welcome back again. Been 2 months. Good to see you. What you've been up to?
Hey, thanks, Rovan, so much for the invite. All right, so yeah, we've been busy helping out our customers in doing deep dive operational best practices for a lot of the different security services, and of course, we'll be discussing some of this new features that's been released. And how about things? How's things for you and your team?
Yeah, good. I just actually back from holidays over the weekend. Went to Egypt for 3 weeks. So I'm trying to get back to work again. Let's say I'm getting to it by now. It's really good. Kept me busy since I came back, so I can't complain. Once I finish here, I'll head to one of my customers to help them migrate one of their Tier 0 application to AWS. Looking forward to that.
Oh, that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, thank you. How was your YouTube session? I didn't actually get a chance to watch it. I was on a flight.
Yeah, one of our recent YouTube tutorial on ethical hacking is pretty cool, and it's another of our security service that been highly requested, which is on Secrets Manager. So we were demonstrating like what is the reason why we need to protect our credentials, and if a hacker managed to gain access to one of the services, they could easily enumerate and list down, say, different type of source code, and in those source code, or configuration files, they could contain certain passwords, and those passwords could then be used to log into another service within a network or perhaps within another service in the OS. So those were the type of tutorials that we came up with recently. So that was quite exciting to run through too. Yep.
I have an interesting question. So I know you always have your YouTube session where you kind of educate the public and teams and everyone on how to protect from a security perspective. Have you thought of launching another tutorial where you teach people how to hack others or how to, because usually you get better in understanding security when you start hacking, not to
Yep.
promote the way, but
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, definitely. And most of the time, I only cover really much more slightly dated type of vulnerabilities because some of those vulnerabilities are quite impactful, like the Log4j, which I will only cover maybe in a few more time once everything has really died down and all the applications have been patched. So a lot of this we can learn. Like Log4j vulnerability is something that you can easily find, all right, 5-10 years ago from operating system commands that are used to inject back into it. So a lot of lessons to be learned. So yeah, definitely we cover both ethical hacking as well as the defense side of protecting against this type of threats. Yeah.
nice, nice. All right, let's talk about maybe the announcements that you prepared for us today, Leon. So the first one is the firewall manager or network firewall manager, which now
Uh-huh.
supports managed threat signature. That's
Yep.
really quite cool, and it's a great assistant to our customers, especially having as a threat detection. What actually do you think such a feature will help customer achieve?
Yep, that's right. So the network firewall is an inspection service that we can use for deep packet inspection to look at the packets and be able to use both stateful and stateless rules to inspect those different packets that are coming in and out of your network. And the beauty of your managed threat signature is that instead of having to say build your own suricata rules where you have to turn on Wireshark, you have to look at the bytes, you have to look at the indicators of attacks and compromise, and then building those rules yourself. Right. So what we have done now is we have saved you tremendous time and effort in doing a lot of this testing by allowing these managed threat signatures to be available for you. And from there, all right, you can look at some of the examples of suricata rules that we've developed. All right, and in cases where perhaps your network does not run certain type of protocol, say you do not have SMB running, you do not have certain protocols within your network, then you can easily use, all right, some of this different type of signatures available, right, to help you detect this type of threats. And at the same time, you can build your own custom rules to look out for some of the ways that you could possibly block out some of these different protocols that could be running as a result of a compromise or an attempt to compromise one of those services or devices or systems in the network.
Oh, interesting, actually, because you mentioned it's also protect stateless, not just stateful, which is the most common protection there. Can you maybe, I understand from managed services and working in enterprise and financial sector, large customers lean to have managed services or outsource this operation to vendors or partners. Do you want to maybe let us know why would customers use such a feature and not build their own custom rules?
Yep. So building your own features, I was building some of these suricata rules as well, and it does require deep expertise, and you also have to be ready to build different types and test out different types of exploits, payloads that are going through the network, and then making them available in suricata format where you have the content, the bytes, and the position of the different type of signatures. So building those does require a significant amount of time and effort and a lot of testing for it. So with the managed threat signatures that we have now created, so you have the ability to detect like bots, you have the ability to detect, say, application layer attacks, maybe a DOS attack, denial of service, all right, different type of emerging events. So now you can easily turn them on, all right, within a few click of a association against the firewall endpoint. So that saves up a lot of time. And at the same time, yes, the customers can continue to build their own rules and maintain their own rules so that they can be more environment aware. So they can continue to do that too. So both of this are now available for our customers. So they can then use and reference from those threat signatures, all right, and then to build them, perhaps reference them and then use them as building blocks to create more advanced type of type of protection against different type of attacks. So yeah, they actually have both options available using the managed rule as well as the custom rules that they want to build. Yep. And in fact, Rowan, perhaps I would like to pose a question back to you too. How would you see our customers benefiting from this new managed threat signature list?
I guess it's quite beneficial, right? Because signature-based detection is one of the most common techniques, really, to protect software against attacks like malware, trojans, viruses, all of these things that happens on end-user computers and servers. So, as you mentioned before, the amount of testing required to get these rule right, it's not an easy task, and it's quite significant effort. So, having this as a managed, where you get the most common signature base detection already baked or prepared for you and enable it with just a couple of clicks is quite actually powerful for all customers, especially enterprise ones.
Okay, thanks for the further insights on that.
Easy. So the other one we have today is the Audit Manager, and it seems that Audit Manager now allow you to use custom roles from config. So I have an interesting question here. Knowing that config already goes through AWS config, goes through the AWS resources and accounts and so on, and do audit these resources and configuration changes, what would be the difference really that Audit Manager provides above and beyond AWS config?
Yep, that's right. So yeah, that's a question we get all the time from our customers. Like, hey, you already have config that can do all this resource tracking, that has the timeline configuration changes that we can easily view, and then against compliance or certain rules that you may have built. So the question then is, what's the difference? So between Audit Manager and config. So actually, under the hood, Audit Manager uses AWS config to look at all this different resource configuration and then to check them against all these different security controls that are tied back to different security frameworks, like your Center for Internet Security, your payment cut, PCI data security standards. All these are the different security controls that we have created, and we have mapped them out in Audit Manager. And then under the hood, right, some of it may be using AWS config to do those check against those resources. Right, at the same time, Audit Manager can also use other data sources like your CloudTrail to look at all the events that are happening in the accounts, even using Security Hub, all right, to look at the other different compliance states that's been collected from the security frameworks that's available in Security Hub, and then also API calls to do evidence collection that can be part of the review, the assessment report that can be made available later on to auditors. So actually under the hood, all right, Audit Manager is using config to run all this resource configuration check, and then to check them against the security controls that we have within the Audit Manager's framework.
I got you. So actually, that gets me to ask two questions. One is, does that mean if a customer wants to use Audit Manager, do they have to enable config? And my other question would be, why do customers just go, instead of using Audit Manager, just use their own resources instead and rules when it comes to audits?
Yep. So the good thing is in Audit Manager, we're hyper flexible, right? You don't have to say, I have to have Security Hub. I gotta be using AWS config in order to use Audit Manager. So those are the different data sources that can be collected. You can also have manual evidences that are uploaded into your assessments. So those are the options available, and config can be one of those data sources that can have automated evidence collection. All right, so you can automatically collect different evidences from the resources and then place them over into Audit Manager assessments. All right, so the answer is it's optional. Right, just that the config can be one of those data sources that can run the automatic evidence collection. And of course, leading to the second question is, why don't we just audit resources on our own instead of using Audit Manager? So there are several benefits of using Audit Manager, and one of that is we can automatically collect evidences from all these existing available services that you are already using, like your config, Security Hub, CloudTrail, and so on, so that you don't have to spend time creating these controls and then mapping them back into the different security frameworks that you need to comply to. And secondly, all these are automated evidence collection. And this is especially relevant when you're on a cloud and you need to instantiate resources. So maybe today you have 1,000 EC2, tomorrow you scale down, you have 500, and then the day after you scale up, you have 10,000 EC2s, and you want to continuously have those evidences being collected automatically for you. And the third part that's really neat is we can now generate all these assessment reports by targeting the evidences that you have collected and then make them available to the auditors, right? So then you can look at the assessment reports, have the evidences in place with the integrity check, and then provide all these different reports back to the auditors. And I also would like to pose this question back to you too. Robin, how do you think Audit Manager can possibly further benefit our customers?
Oh, well, I have to admit, I'm a big fan of both AWS Config and Audit Manager. Was both of them actually kind of keep a resource and able to provide you with audit reports, I guess. Audit Manager, just to answer your question, why specifically Audit Manager? It's because of the automation of collection of evidence. Working with financial sector customers and definitely as well public sector customers, aviation and telcos and any regulated customer really, the time and effort they go through to prepare these reports for their auditors is no joke. It's actually significant effort. So having Audit Manager go through all of the resources and map out the audit report against industry benchmarks and so on, that becomes really beneficial and helpful for these customers and cut down lots of their time and effort to prepare their reports. I remember when I first started in financial sector about 4 or 5 years ago, that would take the audit and risk manager within the bank a good 3 months to
Wow.
So knowing by the time they collect all of the evidence, go through all of the data, write the report, that was significant effort. So seeing that can be done by just a couple of clicks is such a huge difference. So I couldn't be more fan of it.
Well, that's really good to hear. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we finished with the announcement, but I would like to just sneak a question quickly. If we can have any sneak peek on your next tutorial.
Yeah, that's right. We're working on a tutorial on how we can scan WordPress. So WordPress is a content management system that's quite widely used on the internet, and we'll be demonstrating how some of these plugins could be vulnerable, even though perhaps the OS, the application is secure, but the plugins that are installed regularly into all these different content management systems, say, for example, in this case, WordPress, could be vulnerable. And that vulnerability can lead to exposure of those critical information within the database. So that's something that will likely come up, hopefully in the next couple of days as another interesting ethical hacking tutorial. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. I also actually have my own WordPress website, so quite beneficial, and also for all customers as well. So it's widely common, as you said. Well, that's good. Well, all the best with that, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great session. So looking forward to it. And with that, I'll bring back Matt and Mark in the Computer Lounge.
Thank you, guys. I think anyone that's ever worked with AWS has got a WordPress site somewhere on their AWS account. They tried to spin it up. It's the default. It's the hello world of CloudFormation templates. Thank you both. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Yang.
Welcome, Mr. Platts. I hope you are staying dry up there in sunny Brisbane.
I'm barely would probably be my response to that. It's just been completely just a mess for the last week or so. It just isn't stop. The rain is not stopping. How are you guys faring up there? Down there.
We're in Cairns, Sydney. It's wet. It's raining, but clearly we don't have currently don't have the flooding problems that some of us around Australia do. So if you're listening in and trying to stay dry, hope all the best for you. We've got some compute launches to talk about, and so welcome if you've just joined the stream. We just had Robin and Yang go over security and compliance of AWS releases, our favorite ones really, or the ones we feel are the most important over the last month. And Matt, this is your pick, and you started with i4 instances. i4i instances.
That's right.
Yeah, tell us a little.
A bit of a jump from the previous generation i3. So what we're looking at here is these are our instances for our storage IO intensive workloads. So think mission critical, high scale database that not only need the compute and memory, but also have the strong storage footprint as well. So with the i4s, you're looking at up to 30 terabytes of NVMe delivered through Nitro, which is some pretty big numbers. I'm just looking at some of the storage performance as well. So there's 75% less storage variability in the new i4s.
More consistent throughput.
A lot more consistent. Yeah, that's right. As well as about 60% faster performance to just reduce storage latency as well. So that's a big number.
I saw this launch, and I also saw another launch for anyone using the Sydney region that we've released R5B instances. So if you're running R5 instances, you can now run R5B instances. And when I went sort of looking to see why people would want to do this, because the R5B instances are bigger and better, you can actually consolidate your workloads, and that can be good for things like licensing costs. So, excuse me. I thought that was a good move. I mean, R5Bs have been around, but we now have them in Sydney, and of course, i4s are available in a whole bunch of regions. But I think I saw Redis as a reference customer for this, and another NoSQL database called SkillerDB.
That's right.
QuickSight
as well.
For those. And
QuickSight.
Yeah, our internal QuickSight service. Yeah. Nice one.
Big numbers there. I mean, a 2x of the old i3, which in this day and age, I think we get very used to just numbers being thrown around, but just another big jump like that for workloads that are as on this end of the spectrum, I think it's good to see.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at 1 terabyte of memory, and you think of, if you're using something like Redis, which is it's a key value database that runs all in memory. What it does do is every now and then it'll take a binary dump of what's in memory and it'll write it to disk, right? So you do need a lot of local disk. You need fast local storage for that. So cool release. I like that one.
On demand too, right? I was just thinking about it just before, but I remember it would have been at least 9-10 years ago, deploying on-prem for compute that was roughly the same size, right? It was all Solaris, Unix. It was a little bit different, but this is on demand. You just go in right now, click deploy, and you get 1T, which I think it's very impressive to see that. It really kind of speaks to that ability to kind of consume that straight away. That's right.
Used to be a six week ordering time to get that sort of memory.
I've never done it in 6 weeks, but for me, my experience was a lot longer than that sometimes. But yes, that's right.
Yeah, nice one. So new instances, we've got a new tiny little feature on EC2 key pairs, but you included this one because I know you like things that make people's life just a little bit easier. And
that's right.
And this one does,
less friction is always a good thing, and also being an old Unix admin back in the day, which I think I just let slip with some of those Solaris Unix comments. But it was always been a bit of a bugbear for me to deploy Box and not having that PPK support. It just meant that you'd have to use PuTTY convert it over, convert the PEM to a PPK, and then fire it up in PuTTY to get access. So we've baked that PPK support in now. So that's going to kind of help. And
I don't know how many people are using PuTTY globally, but it must be tens of thousands. And if you can save every one of those people 5 to 10 seconds each time they're doing that, it's actually a significant saving for people. It's a small thing, but it just makes life a little easier and a little less friction. And the next one actually is also similar. I think it's EFS integration into EC2 console. EFS, of course, is our elastic file service. Think of an NFS mount in the cloud is how I always think about it. And when you're creating an EC2 instance, you don't have to leave that console and go and create the EFS file system, you can actually create it in the same workflow, right? Is how I understand this.
That's right. Yeah. And even just taking a step back, right? Like EFS, completely serverless. You just say, I need a file system. I'm not sure how large it needs to be. I'm not even sure what kind of IOPS I need, but just give me something and then we'll figure it out later. To now tie that straight into your deployment of EC2 and having another option that's not just EBS. I think it really kind of will open the door to that usage around some shared volumes, shared storage, and some use cases that you could have traditionally done through CloudFormation, obviously, or CDK, but just really brings us right to the front and right to the console as well.
Well, I can tell you, if you're doing a WordPress deployment, you need EFS. So you're going to need to fire up EFS if you're going to do Yang's tutorial on the ethical hacking of WordPress. Nice one. All right. The next one is about auto scaling, adding a default instance warm up time. And before you talk about this, I thought I'd include just this little diagram here for people to have a look at. So, when an EC2 instance, goes through its stages of first starting as a thought in your mind about starting an EC2 instance, all the way through to deploying that and actually having it serve application traffic, it goes through a number of status changes. And it starts at pending, and then at some point you get to in service, which is here in the middle. Now that means the instance is ready from a bare bones perspective. It's fired up. It starts sending CloudWatch metrics. Your auto scaling policies will look at it and say, hey, that's ready to go. Let's throw that into the pool potentially. But that could be problematic, right? Like, I know you've had customers that have had a problem with that particular flow, and they've been stuck, right?
That's right, especially for I've had a customer in the past that had a Windows workload, and their deployment time to add one additional Windows node into the auto scaling group was about 43 minutes. Everything from patching, deployment of agents on the box, getting it ready, preloading of data. 43 minutes, give or take, plus or minus 9 minutes in some instances was roughly the time it took to get it online. And there's always valid reasons for that. And this is just the way to when you are in such a workload that has some of these considerations, this is effectively the space that you're now playing in around optimization and configuration. This is the way, this new feature, so being able to specify a default instance warm-up time, effectively tells auto scaling, okay, there's a few additional considerations here before you mark something as active. In the event of a scale in or a scale out, or even a health check as well, just factor this in before you start making any key decisions. Nice. And ultimately what that means is by the time we bring the pool online, the box is ultimately really ready to go. Yeah,
and you're applying that to the auto scaling group in its entirety, right? Rather than waiting for sort of select scaling or replacement events. This is your entire auto scaling group is going to get this default instance warm up time. Makes it really easy.
It does,
that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that one. Okay, and our last one is around ECS and EKS sort of faster launching. It was just going to bring up the blog post that was written about this, and just before we go into the pretty incredible sort of uptick in performance, just to sort of explain to people, on the left here is a whiteboard version of ECS or how it works, and clearly in the top bucket, or in the top box I should say, on the left, you have the API, which is where developers and operations people can declare what they want of the ECS service, right? So got that little statement at the top that says, run 10 copies of this application container as a service and keep them running indefinitely. That could be a sort of translation of your API call. And then that task scheduler, obviously there's a communication agent and monitoring of the ECS agents on the boxes themselves, but the task scheduler really does all of the heavy lifting, right? And if you say to the task scheduler, give me 1,000 tasks, okay, it's not going to go and do those all at once. It's going to do them in bursts, and you can see those numbers up here, right? It'll do a burst, it's got obviously a whole bunch of fairly complicated analysis to do about, which instances are available and where the capacity is, etc. And all of that heavy lifting is done by the service. But take a look in the bottom right hand corner at the benchmarks, right? So at the top there, and I think this comes in at the fastest at the top, is Fargate on demand capacity with no load balancer. You could spin up 1,000 tasks in 208 seconds. I can't do the calculation on how many minutes that is off the top of my head. 3.5 minutes. 4.8 tasks a second. That's really that's really fast, and much faster than it was a couple of years ago.
That's right, and that's into a fully serverless compute environment. So all the heavy lifting that Fargate's doing for you around running, orchestrating, managing that platform. It's taking the container down, it's unpacking it, it's getting it ready to go. And of course, there's some variability there. If you look a little bit further down, you'll see if it's a load balance service, it's a little slower at 4 tasks per second. But still, this is 16 times faster, I think, than what it was just last year or the year before. So that's right.
Crazy fast.
There's a run task API too, which is more for batch jobs or one-time tasks, and that's 20x faster now too. So some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well that's it for our compute lounge for this month. Thank you. Let me just pop to the last slide, which is a reminder about I'm going to bring Rovan and Yang in now. Rovan particularly because I know she's involved in the summit this year, in one of the 90 plus educational sessions, some great keynotes. I think one from Simon Alicia, which I'm really looking forward to. This is going to be a great event.
So Rianne, our managing director for ANZ, will actually have the first day keynote alongside leaders from some of our customers. And then on the second day, we have Simon Alicia, director of a solution architect in public sector, will have also another keynote, and they're live. We also have a Deep Racer event live at the summit, which is really cool. So it's not too late to, sign up. It's still open, and post the key note, obviously, will start the educational session over 2 days. So looking forward to it. By the way, on the first day at 2:45 exactly in the afternoon. So I will be live, actually answer customers' questions. So looking forward to see everyone.
And if you can't be there in real life, just remember the metaverse is always waiting for you. Thanks all for tuning in. We will be back next month. Thank you, Yang, again. Lovely to have you, and best of luck with your new YouTube tutorial, which they're always fun to watch. And we will see you again next month. Take care.
Cheers.
See you, folks.
Thank you.